This is The Lone Man on the Ridge, Episode 6, First Contact. The sun had long since disappeared behind the ridge when Jack finally stepped inside the cabin. His shoulders ached terribly. His hands were raw from digging. The metallic smell of gun oil and dirt still clung to him. He set the Remington 870 by the door and then leaned the scoped .308 next to it. Mr. Rogers padded in behind him, nails clicking softly on the wooden floor. Mr. Rogers then dropped down into his old blanket with a heavy sigh. Jack sat on the edge of his cot for a long moment, staring at nothing. The silence in the cabin felt heavier than usual tonight. He finally pulled off his boots and laid back, still fully dressed. Sleep did not come easy. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same scenes playing over and over. The tripwire rattling in the gray dawn light. Travis swinging the shotgun towards Mr. Rogers. The crack of the .308 and Travis dropping like a stone. Jack stared up at the rough wooden ceiling beams. One man, that's all I am. He still heard the crack of that .308 echoing across the ridge. He could still see Travis's body hitting the ground. "I didn't want this," Jack whispered into the darkness. "I gave them every chance to walk away." Mr. Rogers lifted his head from the blanket, ears perked, sensing the unease in his master's voice. Jack reached down and scratched Mr. Rogers behind the ear. "You did good today, boy. You saved my life." Jack sat up and reached over to a small wooden shelf beside his cot and pulled out a small cloth bag. He took out a few pieces of deer jerky and held them out. "Here you go. You earned this." Mr. Rogers gently took the jerky from Jack's hands, his tail thumping slowly against the floor. Jack laid back down on the cot, staring at the ceiling again. But what happens next time? That thought would not leave him alone. Dylan had made it very clear that this was not over. And the next time, he wouldn't be coming with just 3 or 4 men. He would bring friends, more guns, and more anger. Jack knew the truth in his gut. He could not defend the cabin forever. Not against a large, determined group. Not if they came at him from multiple directions at the same time. For the first time in 5 weeks, Jack seriously considered something he'd never hoped he'd ever have to do. That he might have to leave. The thought felt wrong the moment it entered his mind. This cabin was everything he had. 5 years of work, his garden, his water system, his solar system, his safety. But if enough men came up that trail, none of that would matter. He stared into the darkness, mind racing. How long can I survive out there with just a pack on my back? How long before I run out of food and water? How long before someone else finds me up here? Mr. Rogers let out a soft whine beside the cot. Jack reached down and rested his hand on Mr. Rogers' head. "I know, boy. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave either." He lay there for a long time, the reality of his situation slowly sinking in. His ridge had always felt like the safest place he could be. Now, for the first time, it was starting to feel like a trap. With that heavy thought lingering in his mind, exhaustion finally took over. Jack's breathing slowed, his body relaxed, and he drifted into a restless sleep. It didn't last long. His body twitched on the cot as the nightmare took hold. In the dream, the ridge was crawling with people. Not 3 men, but dozens. They moved through the trees like shadows, surrounding him from every direction. Dylan was leading them, his face twisted in rage. Travis walked with a gaping wound in his chest, eyes empty, but somehow still staring straight at Jack. Jack tried to raise his rifle, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. His hand shook violently. He tried to call for Mr. Rogers, but no sound came out of his mouth. The mob closed in. Mr. Rogers barked frantically beside him, but the sound was distant and muffled. Jack watched in horror as the dog was overwhelmed by the crowd. "You can't protect him forever, old man," Travis whispered with a bloody smile. Jack awoke with a violent start, bolting upright on the cot, gasping for air. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. His shirt was soaked in sweat. Mr. Rogers was already on his feet, staring at him with concern. Jack put a shaky hand on the dog's head, trying to calm his breathing. "It's just a dream, boy. It's just a dream." He rubbed his face with both hands and then glanced at the small wind-up clock on the shelf. It was barely past midnight. He still had several hours until dawn. Jack let out a long, tired sigh. There was no way he was getting back to sleep tonight. He stood up slowly, his body stiff and sore from the day's events. Walking over to the small wood stove, he added a couple pieces of wood and stoked the fire back to life. The orange glow filled the cabin. Mr. Rogers stayed as close to Jack as he could. Jack poured himself a small cup of water and sat down at the rough wooden table. He stared at the fire for a long time, the nightmare still playing over and over in his head. "Well, I guess we're both up now, boy." After a few minutes, Jack stood up and walked over to the corner of the cabin where his ham radio setup was located. He powered on the unit, adjusted the dial, and keyed the mic. "Kilo Quebec 4, Yankee India Tango. This is KQ4 YIT, calling CQ, calling CQ. Is anybody out there? Come in, please." Jack released the mic and listened. The only thing he heard was a static-filled speaker. He waited a few more seconds and keyed up again. "KQ4 YIT, calling CQ. KQ4 YIT, calling CQ. Is anybody out there?" He was about to switch frequencies when a faint, scratchy voice suddenly broke through the static. "I copy you 2 by 2. You're really weak but readable. This is Alpha, Lima, Lima, Uniform Delta. Do you copy?" Jack's eyes widened. He adjusted the dial and keyed the mic. "Alpha, Lima, Lima, Uniform Delta. This is Kilo Quebec 4, Yankee India Tango. You're faint but I read you. What is your location?" "Kilo Quebec 4, Yankee India Tango. This is Lima Delta. I'm just outside Washington, D.C. How do you copy me?" "Lima Delta, this is Yankee Tango. Roger that. I'm in western North Carolina. You're the first station I've been able to reach since everything went down. What is the situation on your end?" "Yankee Tango, this is Lima Delta. It's real bad up here. D.C. is a mess. Power is out. Lots of fires. People are fighting over food and water. The military tried to set up a safe zone, but it fell apart fast. We're hearing rumors of mass graves and typhoid outbreaks. We're staying low, just trying to survive day by day. How are things down your way?" "Lima Delta, this is Yankee Tango. It's much the same here, but on a smaller scale. It's so happy to hear a voice. We've seen some local looting and people starting to get desperate, but nothing like you're describing. Hey, can you answer something for me? Was this caused by an EMP? Have you heard any details about what happened?" "Yankee Tango, this is Lima Delta. Yeah, from what I've heard, it was definitely an EMP. Multiple sources have confirmed it at this point. Some people are even saying it was a high-altitude detonation over the Midwest. Knocked out most of the country from what I know. We haven't heard anything from the West Coast at all." "Lima Delta, this is Yankee Tango. Has FEMA or the Red Cross or anybody been able to help at all?" There was a long pause before the reply came. "Yankee Tango, this is Lima Delta. Negative. Haven't seen a sign of them. Look, I've been on the air too long. I don't like to transmit for extended periods. If you want, we can try to meet back up on this freak tomorrow at 0900. Does that sound good?" "Lima Delta, this is Yankee Tango. That sounds perfect. Thank you so much for the contact. Stay safe out there." "Will do. 73. Jack sat motionless for a long moment, staring at the glowing display. The only sound left in the cabin was the soft crackling of the wood stove. He let out a long breath and rubbed his face with both hands. Washington, D.C. It's that bad up there. The man's words kept echoing in his head. Mass graves, typhoid, no government assistance, no help. Jack looked over at Mr. Rogers, who was lying by the stove watching him. Hey, buddy, it sounds like we're on our own. Ain't nobody coming to help. He sat quietly for a while, letting the weight of the conversation settle in. The nightmare from earlier suddenly felt more real. Jack stared into the fire, his face lit by the dancing flames. I've built this place to be safe. I built this place to be left alone. He looked over at Mr. Rogers. Now this place might be the one thing that gets us killed. Jack leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, staring deep into the glowing embers. The same question kept circling in his mind, heavier now than it was before the sun went down. Do I stay here and fight for what I built, or do I leave it all behind? Jack did not have an answer, and time was quickly running out. This has been The Lone Man on the Ridge, Episode 6, First Contact.